Geek Out! Welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake. Welcome to November, everyone.
Woo!
It is November, my dudes. And joining us... Joining us to ring in this month is Meredith Finch. She comes back on the show, talk about the first volume of Rose, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, November 8th. She just got announced as the writer for the Xena Warrior Princess comic, and, you know, she's obviously written Wonder Woman quite a bit, and you can still check out all those books. But, you know, let's let her talk about all that. And joining us back on the show is Meredith Finch. The first volume of Rose, collecting the series' first 6 issues, is out on Wednesday, November 8th. You can also catch her Wonder Woman run, available, you know, in comic book stores everywhere and on Comixology. And this was just announced in New York. She'll be taking over writing duties on Xena, Warrior Princess. So keep an eye out for that too. Meredith, thanks for coming back on the show.
Well, thanks for having me again.
So, you know, I think. Before we jump into Rose and all that, I do have to I have to ask how is this past New York? How is this past Baltimore? You know, where we got to meet up briefly.
It was so much fun. I did kind of a comic book whirlwind, like a comic convention whirlwind. So by the time we got to New York and Baltimore, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'd been out to 7 shows in a month and a half or something like that. It was like every other weekend I was at the show. But Baltimore and New York, hands down, 2 of my very favorite shows. And I think it's because the fans and the feel at both of those shows are... I don't go to San Diego anymore. I don't need to, because New York is better. They both still feel very much like comic book shows as opposed to show business media shows.
Well, I think the thing that helps New York is it actually has a dedicated artist alley. I mean, San Diego has one, I guess, in name. Like there are artist booths, but yeah, by and large, it is just like, oh look, there's Marvel or AMC or whoever.
Yeah. New York definitely continues to prioritize artists and recognize what the root of comics is.
How did you find the relocated artist alley in the basement rather than the annex this year?
I missed the annex. The basement was great. The most stressful thing for me, though, was lining up to get out, because there was one escalator to go up or down, and there was a lot of people waiting. And I don't do crowds well. Like, claustrophobia kind of starts to set in when there's I'm packed in like sardines in a can. So you didn't really get that in the annex the way you did in the basement, but the basement was so well laid out. There was tons of room, and it still had a really nice feel.
That's cool. And I do have to thank you for jumping on my Baltimore Comic-Con panel. Packed house, of course.
It was fun. I love doing panels. I think because comics, but the great thing about panels is comics, you kind of work in your own little world that most of us work at home. Mm-hmm. So panels are a great way to oh, hey, I've never met you before. I recognize the name. Now I have a face, that kind of thing. So it's always, even though sometimes the interaction with other professionals is quick, it's still nice to get together and say hi and meet people.
Oh, I've been working, image shows for 2.5 years now, somewhere thereabout. And yeah, it's always finally putting a name to a face in addition to just working in print or working on a podcast. So yeah, no, totally. So yeah, let's jump into Rose. So again, this first volume collects the first 6 issues of the series. Even so, it feels very much like a complete package. One of the things that intrigued me, obviously, when we had you on last time, we only had access to the first 2 issues. Now we've got 6 and then some. But Rose she starts at the beginning of this story very angry. I mean, rightfully so, given what happens to her in the opening issue. But she becomes almost like a Zen Jedi-esque character by the end of this first arc. What do you think is that leads her to become this more mature, more balanced character over the course of 6 issues?
I think part of it is giving herself a purpose. So whenever we have a direction in life, I think it always helps us to feel a lot calmer and know what we're doing or where we're supposed to be going. I think also I really wanted to have that moment to address how people deal with negative situations in their life, and rightly so. I mean, her mother was murdered and she came home to this horrifying scene. So I wanted her to have that moment of anger and I'm going to have revenge. And that still carries through into the next arc in issue 7. Mm. But I also I didn't want that to overshadow the core of who she is and what is her nature naturally. And I wanted to reflect that as the story goes on with Drusilla and how negative things happen to both of them that are very painful, but how each of them deals with that in a different way.
And, mentioning Drusilla, one of the things that kind of caught me from the, especially in creator-owned books, they tend to move at a breakneck pace. There is a real deliberate, you move at a steady clip, but there is a real deliberate pace. A lot of characters in this opening arc either haven't met or meet either halfway or towards the end of it. So what was it about kind of structuring and pacing this story that, how much of that, basically, how did you do that? I'm trying to come up with like a smarter way to say that.
Well, I think it helps that I don't have a defined, like, this story has to be wrapped up in 12 issues or 18 issues or 24 issues. I don't have a defined end goal. I always looked on this story as something that I wanted to be doing for a long time. So I don't have an end that I'm rushing toward or that I have to meet a deadline for. I think the other thing that really influences me in this, I always say that I'm a huge fan of fantasy fiction. And the thing that really draws me to fantasy fiction is that it's not just a one and done kind of thing with a book. They're usually, like, if you think about the Robert Jordan Wheel of Time books, those books are massive and there's so much that happens in each one of them. And I think there's 12 or 13 of them. So you have this huge long story arc where you get to really get to know the characters and care about the characters, and it's nothing is rushed toward having to have something happen. And I wanted that for this. I wanted people to feel like they got to know the characters and they had the ability to care about who they are, and slowly play out their relationships and mysteries about their past as we go through. So yeah, I think it helps because I think for both of those reasons is why the pacing has been the way it has been.
With the so moving into, and this is something that just had been announced a week or so ago. I think it was just last week now I think about it. So Rose is back with issue 7 in January. Can we expect kind of a similar linear narrative? Will we get kind of like flashbacks into other characters' past, into, say, Drusilla's past or maybe Dante's past? Or is it still Rose front and center moving forward?
Definitely doing some flashbacks for both Rose and Drusilla, because I wanted, again, I feel like in some ways they're my two core characters, and I want to have that back and forth, compare and contrast, so people can really understand who they are, and as their paths sort of converge toward their meeting, which will happen. Mm-hmm. I want people to understand their reactions when we get to that moment, and how everything spins out from that. So we do get flashbacks with the two of them. I have some flashbacks planned with some other characters, but I'm not sure if I want to do those as like one-offs. Like I feel like maybe a Dante flashback might do better as a one-off, or getting to know our band of rebels like Will and Val and Bjark, if that would be and Isla. So I'm still toying with those ones, but right now, I finished 7 through 10. The flashbacks are really focused on Rose and Drusilla.
Is the second arc supposed to run through 10, or will it run for another 6, I suppose, through 12?
I'm debating on that one, honestly. Do I do 6? Because I really come from that DC 6-issue arc sort of mindset, but I know Image tends to do more 5-issue arcs, mm-hmm. So I'm debating with that one. I'm kind of just going to let the story tell the tale, I guess. Sure. If I feel like at the end of issue 11 that it's a good place to end that arc, I will. But if I feel like I need another issue to do it, then I'll take 12 to do it as well. It's the great thing about working for yourself. Nobody tells you what you have to do. You can just make it up as you go along.
And you had mentioned this during the panel, and I don't think you mentioned it the last time you were on the show, or in the magazine. The there was a bit about doing the thank you letter at the beginning, or the thank you at the beginning of the story, as opposed to at the end, because you realized with Image you could do whatever you wanted with a book.
Yeah, and I still, when I was putting the trade together, I did that same sort of thing. I always say I'll come up with an idea and I'll say to Dave, because he's been in comics for forever, what do you think? I'd like to do this. And he'll say, nobody ever does that. And I'm like, well, does that mean that I can't do it, or does it just mean that nobody's done it before? And that was, when we talked about the thank you letter, that was one of the things that he had said is, you usually put that at the end. I'm like, I really wanted people to know that the book wouldn't have happened without all the people that I thanked. And I felt like I didn't want it to get missed by putting it at the end. And that being said, there is something at the end of the trade that I don't want people to miss. So make sure you read all the way to the end of the trade.
Yeah, and of course you get all sorts of special features that you don't get with the floppies and everything. So it's always, if you're looking to get that perfect 6-issue concentrated dose of Rose. Now, with you mentioned Isla, and I feel like in some ways we learn more about Isla's backstory, at least in these first 6 issues, than we do anybody else. She certainly, plays a role in the prologue and that sort of thing. In a lot of ways, her faith, I think, is a model for where Rose ends up. So do you think that's kind of... You had mentioned the inherent core of Rose kind of being brought out and enhanced by her own abilities as a guardian. Do you think a fair bit of that is Isla's influence as well?
Definitely, and you're going to see how that plays out with Drusilla too. But I think that the women, and I'm going to say women because that's who I've been heavily influenced by in my life, but the people in your life that you look to for advice have a very heavy influence on how you perceive the world around you. And when you're surrounded by people who are very positive and are willing to put forth, I'm trying to think of what the right word is. I want to say loving, because I feel like Isla isn't necessarily like overly loving, but she's a very calm, sort of Zen kind of attitude.
Yeah, kind of serene, yeah.
Yeah, that I feel like does rub off on Rose and the people around her as she goes along.
Mm. And then the other side of that with Dante, I don't want to go into too much detail, but he starts out, the start of this arc, he's very much the hardened, like he's the Drusilla's right hand killer. Before she invokes a certain kind of undead aspect, at least into the story, which kind of caught me off guard. All of a sudden, it became the stakes raised immeasurably, very, very quickly. What do you think it is about Rose that makes Dante kind of question his own motives, his own place, his own morality?
Well, I think when we look back at issue 1, and we had that moment where he approached Drusilla and he had failed or hadn't done what her expectation for him was. She really put his life on the line in that moment. And it was kind of like, if you fail, failure is unacceptable. There's no forgiveness. It's a very hard sort of dog-eat-dog environment that she's nurtured. And I think coming from that so abruptly against Rose, who is very, kind and forgiving, and I don't know if people have read the whole thing, so I don't want to give away too much, but
right.
There's a moment where, he really comes up against that forgiving aspect of her nature. And I think it's such a shock. And the way that he bounces up against it a couple of times, I think stuns him. And then they have a moment where she kind of hits him in a place I don't think he realized he could be hit.
Mm-hmm.
And
that he hadn't seen in a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And makes him very vulnerable. So I think that we sort of set up the things that we needed to do to make it possible for her to reach him. Hopefully. And they're one of my favorite sort of dynamics to write right now, because I don't want to give away too much, but I'm assuming people have read at least some of it. So, she's with him and with Thorne. And I think that threesome really creates a very it's fun to dialogue. It's fun to write.
Sure.
And I think, going forward, it's going to create some interesting
tension.
Friction.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you had mentioned the last time you were on, in a single word, Wonder Woman is love. In a single word, what is Rose?
Am I allowed to use the same answer?
Sure. You created the character.
I wanted, now I have songs going through my head, what the world needs now. I do feel like she's love. And I approached it maybe because I didn't feel like I said everything I wanted to say on that subject with Wonder Woman, and I kind of limited within the parameters of her character what I can and can't do. And this one was Rose is all mine. I can do whatever I want and tell my story and put that message out exactly the way I want to do it. So yeah, I do feel like she's love and she's purity and she's innocence, but that core part of that core at her center, it is love. And we'll see that really comes into play with her guardian powers. And
I think there's also, if I can, again, you know better than I do, but if I can interject, I think there's also this element of there's stronger undertones than Diana Prince of compassion, and there's redemption too. Everyone kind of feels redeemed or rediscovers their faith when they're around her.
I've been reading a lot of C.S. Lewis, so he probably has some influence on that one, because I do feel, again, I wanted her to have that. I did. You haven't missed the mark on that one, so I'm glad that it's coming across in what I'm doing. Absolutely,
there's a purification effect, and I don't think it's any. I don't think it's any coincidence that it happens right around the time where her hair goes platinum, and she starts to dress like, a badass, really.
I agree.
Yeah. Now, the last time, as a bit of a detour, that you were on, Wonder Woman hadn't come out yet. It was months before the film had premiered. I was wondering what your thoughts were of the film. Here we are, months after the premiere, and just a matter of weeks before Gal Gadot's on the big screen again with Justice League. But yeah, I was curious how you thought of the film.
I loved it. I really thought that they did an excellent job of capturing her core and who she stands for, what she stands for as a character. I thought they picked out all the great parts of the stuff that happened, like who she was before New 52. They took some of the New 52 stuff from Brian Azzarello. They really, I cried in the movie. That moment when she came out in No Man's Land with her costume, I had tears streaming down my face. The movie wrapped up, I cried. I feel like if they got the heart, and that's really what that movie needed to be. So I said before, when the Batman Superman movie came out, she was going to steal the show. In that movie, she did. I just knew the Wonder Woman movie was going to be great. It was. And she will probably be. Although I really do like Jason Momoa, so I don't know. He may take it for me as Aquaman. I haven't seen it yet, but that first image they showed was so kick-ass. It's all I have in my head.
Did you enjoy him as Khal Drogo on Game of Thrones?
I did, but it was so short-lived, right?
Yeah.
It's almost I forget that. It's so many seasons ago now.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. It was. He
was great, though. He's on a Canadian show, Frontier, right now, which I haven't watched, but, he looks really good on that one, too. He plays a French voyageur, I think, or something like that. So,
I've been in the Momoa camp since North Shore on Fox, so and that I think was 2004.
So what am I doing telling you these things?
I do. Okay, while we're on the topic of television, I would be remiss if I didn't ask. Did you ever give Chef's Table a second shot, or did it still put you to sleep?
I haven't been home long enough, Sam. I haven't been home long enough. So I have to give it a try. I'm like, Dave, we've got to find something to watch tonight. And then I fall asleep. I've been falling asleep at like 8:30 before the kids. So I do have to sit down. I'm putting it on my calendar. Now I feel really guilty. I'm like, I gotta watch Chefs. Everybody who I've talked to has raved about it. So I clearly just didn't have enough caffeine that night.
I'm really, I was worried because I'm like, am I the anomaly? Did
You're
nobody...
not.
Am I the only one that likes this show?
Yeah, it's got 3 seasons.
I was feeling, actually, I think I'm the anomaly, like, because I didn't enjoy the first episode. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Everybody loves this show. So I have to sit down, I have to have a glass of wine, and I'll make Dave sit beside me and draw something, and then I'm going to watch it because it sounds really cool. I want to see it. I'm bad. I'm stopping my hand right now.
It's all right. It's all right. I've been listening.
Head in shame.
It's okay. I've been listening to Sam rave about the show even longer than you, and more frequently than you, and I still haven't watched a single episode.
Okay, so I'm ahead of you then.
Yeah.
I will admit, it's a show that is episode to episode. If there's a chef you don't like, you just don't.
Well, I think the thing is too, like, it's not a show that like follows an arc, so you can just go through and be like, I like this country and culture of food sounds interesting. Boom, I'll watch that.
This dude makes ramen.
Yeah.
That's I think the reason that I missed out was the first one was an Italian, but I had just watched an episode of something else where somebody was talking about Parmesan cheese and like going into Parmesan cheese warehouses, and I was so fascinated by that I kept wanting that first episode of Chef's Table to be that. So I just have to go like away from the Italian and try the ramen noodle one. I'm sure I'll love it.
Yeah. That was the one that Sam like raved to me. Is like, watch the ramen noodle one. And so I searched through and I watched it, and it's fascinating. It's really it's unlike any other, I think, cooking related story you've ever seen.
My personal favorite is the monk that lives in the mountains of Korea.
That one's nuts.
That's the season 3 premiere.
That one's nuts.
Season 3? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to skip to the season 3 premiere and watch the monk. Sure. And then I'm going to find the ramen noodles.
Mm-hmm. Same season, so yeah.
Okay. Clearly it's season 3 is the one I need to be watching.
There's a dude in season 2. I guess I'm spoiling Chef's Table. Ooh,
you can't spoil real life.
There's a dude in season 2 that gets an oral cancer, and he has to relearn, as a chef, he has to relearn how to taste.
Oh.
So that's kind of a cool,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very intriguing story. But I will say I just started season 3 of The 100.
And
I'm still chugging along. It's good. I mean, I don't know why there's like Black Panthers, like animals, like running around the nuclear woods of Virginia, but it's interesting. I mean, I've been digging it. It's really.
Don't question.
Yeah.
Just don't question.
I will say it is, for anyone who's never seen The 100, it is like the darkest, most graphically violent show I think the CW has ever put out, but it's great.
Yeah. It's definitely not Smallville.
Yeah. So with what can we expect with Arc 2? I mean, you're still writing it. You're still, you've mentioned you did 7 through 10. If some of the, underlying or recurring arcs are, self-discovery and redemption in Arc 1, will we see those similar themes in Arc 2, or will obviously it's kind of building the showdown between these polar opposites in Drusilla and Rose.
Right.
What can we really expect moving into the second arc?
I think I wanted to use the second arc as sort of a basis for giving people an understanding of why some of the characters are the way they are. We're going to get introduced to Drusilla's brother, Prince Felix, and who we met in issue 1. So we'll bring him back in, and we're going to challenge. Some of the characters have some really dramatic turns from the journey that they've been on. So we're gonna maybe take people in unexpected directions. People will be mad at me potentially, and my characters might be mad at me too. But we're having fun. The artwork continues to be incredible. I think the more Ig and Triona get into the characters, the more they just throw everything that they have at the page. And we've got some super awesome variant covers coming up too. So I hate to do the variant cover thing, but I didn't rely on Dave for my variant covers this time.
I mean, even in this first arc, there are variant covers that Dave does not do, and they're all gorgeous. I think, Jake, what were you saying that Ig's art kind of reminded you of?
Oh, definitely had like the Jim Lee vibe.
Jim Lee and kind of Stuart Immonen too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's really growing, and I think it really helps to have a character that is yours, and you're not in danger of losing your job at any moment because somebody else is going to come along or your book's going to get canceled. It knows that we're in this for the long haul, and I think that really helps to invest in what you're doing. And I have noticed definitely a darker feel to the art that he's putting out for this arc, and I think it really reflects the darker tone overall of the arc.
Because this arc is almost like, it feels like it's war. Like all roads are leading to open conflict.
Yeah, everybody is like that. We're pushing hard, compressing down into that final moment that we all know is coming.
Right. With you had never worked with Ig before the series. You mentioned he's grown quite a bit as an artist and kind of growing into the story itself. What would you say how has your collaborative process with him changed since we talked to you last with issue 1 and 2? Now here we are, issue 7's been solicited, you're well into writing the second arc.
I pay less attention to my panel descriptions. Like I see them more now as just sort of like, hey, this is what I think of where the scene is, and more about, I concentrate a lot more on the dialogue and the intention and the emotional aspect of it for him, because really he creates such incredible scenes and scenery and settings that I just let him do that. Every time I say, I'm thinking about this, and you do what you want to do, and then he does it. And it's always better, like either exactly what I have in my mind or beyond what I could have imagined. So I do feel like now I'm less sort of hand in the cookie jar, or that's not really the right analogy there, but I'm less micromanaging the art and more just giving him the story and letting him do what he does best, which is what it should always be.
Yeah. I think a lot of writers, maybe not a lot of writers, and I certainly don't want to throw any specific writers under the bus, but I think there are writers out there that forget that comics is a visual medium. It's certainly, yeah.
Yeah. I think I was talking to an editor today, and about this because I've turned in one of the Xena scripts, and I was saying, the pages are pretty open, and I've done the same for Ig as well. Like I don't like to have a lot of 8-panel pages, because then you're not letting the artists do what they do well. You want them to have the freedom to be able to draw the characters and establish the scene. So you'll see there's the opportunity for him to be open, but I actually really love how where it's really applicable to compress the story and the setting. He really makes the pages feel very tight and boxed in and heavy, and yeah, he's incredibly talented. And I know Dave gets jealous sometimes because I rave about Ig all the time. I'm like, look at his pages. So yeah.
Not to mention, Dave gets to draw Batman on the reg. I think he's doing okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
He may have drawn one of the more definitive Moon Knight stories in the last 15 years. He's cool.
Yeah, gets to do a few things now and again when I let him.
You invoked Xena, so
Yes.
first off, congratulations on getting the nod for Xena Warrior Princess.
Thank you very much.
Now, okay, let me do the old word association thing here because it's tried and true, and it's like Mad Libs. So, if Wonder Woman is love, if Rose is love, compassion, what is Xena Warrior Princess?
Searching, like for me, she's I feel like she's a bit of a lost character, looking for redemption, trying to. I don't have like a one-word answer for her, but redemption is, I guess, maybe the one-word answer that I would give for Xena, or salvation, because she comes from such a dark place in her past and now she's trying to redeem herself and bring light back into the world that she had previously brought a lot of darkness to. So that's sort of like when I think of her core, her center, or what I operate from always when I'm writing her, that's sort of the wheel that I spin around for her.
I mean, I think a lot of people forget that Xena started out as a straight up like Hercules' legendary Journeys antagonist.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much you can talk about it, but is this a kind of a reboot, or is this kind of a continuation?
I'm doing a number one, and I had asked if I was going to do it. Her story's been told for a number of issues, and I feel like it was told a long time ago. I felt like it was really time to have a fresh start and reintroduce her to people who maybe haven't been exposed to Xena for a while, and a whole new generation of people who didn't watch TV in the 90s and grew up. You can't, in Canada, I can't find anywhere to stream it. So maybe people are streaming it in other countries where they don't have such restrictive, viewing regulations. But I wanted to reintroduce her to people. So it is going to be a fresh, like a reboot, fresh start, and always working within the boundaries of what is acceptable for Universal for that character, because they want, and I want too, to have what we do be authentic and not lose the flavor of the original.
I think I think I wrote a report about this for some. In grad school, I was concentrating in media and that sort of in global media, and I remember seeing, like, as I was doing research, seeing syndication numbers for Hercules and Xena, and they overseas did leaps and bounds better than they did domestically here in the States. And I don't know if it was just because it was cheap to license at the time, or if it was just something that it had that kind of every international appeal. But yeah, there is definitely, at least internationally. I mean, it ran 7 seasons here too. Yeah. I think there's definitely a market. So, and I'm trying to think the last time there's been a Xena related thing. It's Dynamite that has the license, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's been a while. I mean, I think maybe last year, I want to say maybe Genevieve Valentine did like a 6-issue Xena arc, but it really continued on from previous arcs and things that have been done with her. So this is a complete like reboot for the character, and so people can pick it up and not need to know anything about Xena or her background, or they can start fresh. The original, what I'm enjoying about it is the original television series is very campy and fun, and so I love the challenge of trying to do campy and fun with a more serious character who, like, at what she needs to do and who she is internally, has like it's very serious to redeem yourself and get over the guilt of being a murderous warlord. and do that in a fun sort of way that maintains what the original was.
With the
people may see a whole new side of me.
I feel like she is the least compassionate character you've written. So I mean, obviously she learns or regains her. I mean, there's, like you're saying, there's absolutely a redemptive arc for Xena, but she is a character that started out very lethally, and I think Rose was spared that because of very quickly running into characters like Isla and Wonder Woman. I mean, Diana was raised by, I can't ever pronounce her mom's name. How do you pronounce her mom's name? Starts with an H.
Hippolyta.
Hippolyta. That's okay.
Although, if you watch the Wonder Woman movie, I don't think they say it that way, but that's how we said it when I worked for DC, so that's how I'm saying it.
They would know.
Yeah.
If you watch the movie and you're mocking my pronunciation, well,
I mean, you wrote.
Send me a GIF with you pronouncing it properly.
You wrote the character for like 18 issues in an annual, or I think you speak from a place of greater authority than any of us could ever hope to. But I think that's so. Yeah, I think Xena will be kind of runs the. Though having said that, Rose starts out pretty, not because of the character herself, but starts out pretty dark too. There is almost like you got to go low before you can start to hope again. And those first 2 issues, I mean, especially that first issue, the opening, it's very, I mean, it's not overly grim, but there is a grimness to it, certainly.
I credit Egg and Trona. I give them a lot of credit for bringing that to the book, because if you don't have the right art and colorist, it doesn't matter what you're trying to accomplish.
With Rose is your first creator-owned title. Now that you've got an arc under your belt, how's it been compared to writing for, say, Dynamite or DC?
I love it because I don't have to wait. Like, I talked to my editor at Dynamite today, and I was like, I don't know if he likes the first script. What if he doesn't like the first script? That's the whole, like, when you're working for a company, you turn something in, and then you kind of have that waiting, like, what if they don't like it? What if I did it wrong? Whereas if it's your own thing, the only person who has to like what you did was you, ultimately. So there's a little less pressure. I'm like back on that sort of up and down wave of, working with a publisher, but not that I'm not, but you know what I mean? Like working for somebody who has to approve what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I like having different challenges and different constraints because they challenge me to be a better writer. And I feel like I'm so different now than I was when I started Wonder Woman. I feel like I think I developed a lot through her and with Rose. So it's fun to do something different and explore different aspects of my writing, like I'm doing right now with Xena.
Yeah. I mean, especially Image and just creator-owned books in general, I feel like, you are kind of out in the wilderness a bit. Like, basically, Eric will kind of sign off on something and be like, all right, cool, well, good luck.
That's basically it. You're on your own. Just send, you get we need your solicitation information email, and then that's it.
Yeah. Just kind of out in the ether.
Yeah.
Well,
you're like, is anybody reading this? Does anybody see my tweets? So, yeah.
How has the response been now that, again, you've done the 7 shows in such a short amount of time, and you've got, 6 issues of Rose out, you're about to put out the trade. How has that aspect of the experience been? It's
been fabulous. And, I've got, especially the benefit of going to a lot of conventions was getting a lot of feedback, and people seem to really love it. And I think I got a lot of disappointed looks when I would say the next book's not coming out until January, and they'd be like, oh, so the fact that people are disappointed they have to wait that long is a good thing, I guess.
Make them miss you.
Because, I don't know. Don't find something else. That's always, there's so many comics out there that you hope you can develop a loyal enough readership that will go through. But there's some great stuff in the trade. So that was one of the benefits of getting the trade. And ultimately, we were really lucky that we did that 1 month break between issue 6 and the trade, and then again between the trade and issue 7, because Ig broke his drawing hand this summer. So we took him, I think he was off for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was good planning. He's like, if you need to get somebody else, it's okay. I'm like, fortunately, we don't need to get anybody else. I mean, I couldn't have anybody else draw Rose anyway.
Sure.
But it was a relief to know that we had planned some room in the schedule, that when he had an emergency, it really wasn't an emergency.
With the, I think you do have the timing pretty well laid out too, because even if the second arc runs for 6 issues, that means you guys have a trade out like in time for stuff like San Diego in July or New York in October. So, and I guess Rose City in September as well. So I think timing wise, you guys are kind of on point there.
It's helpful when you start early and continue a monthly schedule. And I, again, have such a good team, and we've all sort of maintained that where, Ig turns in, he takes maybe just over a month or so, but he turns in like a book a month, and Shona is able to stay on schedule, and I make sure that I'm on track too. So I think that really helps. And you have to with I feel when you're doing your book like this, because if you only do a book every 6 months, then it really is difficult to have an impact when there's so many books coming out.
Right. Well, I guess, again, this first volume of Rose is out on Wednesday, November 8th. Meredith, I don't know if you recall, but something we ask everybody that comes on our show, what are you currently geeking out over?
Christmas now.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's true though. I'm like, oh, Halloween's almost over, so that I can start getting ready for Christmas.
Yeah, still better than the department stores down here where they start to put out the decorations in August.
Yeah,
I know. I
seen
shouldn't say, because people are like, no, Christmas, but I don't know. I just love that holiday. I love decorating the house and doing the baking and doing the shopping. But if we're talking about shows that I'm geeking out over,
not Chef's Table.
The Good Place.
Ah, with Kristen Bell, yeah.
I love that show. It is so much fun. It's so different and quirky. And Kristen Bell, like, she just does everything so well. And it's got a great cast. It's a great concept. So yeah, there's like one show I have to watch every week. It's The Good Place.
I think if you add Ted Danson, if Curb Your Enthusiasm has taught me anything, you throw in a little Ted Danson, unless it's like CSI, and everything is going to be okay.
Oh, Ted Danson.
So was Fargo good for you? Because they threw in a little Ted Danson in season 2.
I mean, they also threw in Bruce Campbell, so I got everything.
True.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the ultimate.
He does comedy well.
Yeah.
CSI not so much, but he does do comedy very well.
I remember
really
when they announced his casting in CSI, like all the promos on CBS, they were like, he doesn't fit in. And then like, what's his name? Well, I forget what the actor's name or character's name was, who's like, that's why he's the perfect choice. It's like, oh, come on.
That's why he's the best.
So Meredith, what can we? I suppose do you have anything else you want to plug before we let you go?
Just Rose, because here's what I would say: if you have not picked up Rose yet, the trade is a perfect time, because you get 6 issues, and we put it at the Image issue 1 price of $9.99. I don't know where you can buy 6 issues for $9.99, but and it's an incredible book. I keep plugging the artist, because the art is phenomenal. The colors are phenomenal. It's what comics should be, a visually beautiful book.
Don't sell yourself short. The scripts are pretty good too.
I can't say I'm awesome. I can't, but I let if you want to say that, then thank you very much. I stick to what I feel like I can comfortably talk about.
Of course.
The day I go out there and say, you should read my book because I'm awesome, is the day that book is not going to be awesome.
Well, can't all be Garth Ennis.
Yes. I can't believe the hype.
Yeah. But, all right. Well, again, that first volume is out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, November 8th, and keep an eye out in January for issue 7 kicking off the second arc, and, of course, keep an eye out for Xena Warrior Princess, and go back, if you dug Rose, go back and dig out those Wonder Woman. You know, you can get it in trade, you can get it in single issue and trade digitally on Comixology. So, Meredith, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks again for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.
Always good talking to Meredith.
Yes.
Yeah. Apparently has much better taste in television than I do. Did you end up watching all of Chef's Table?
No.
Okay.
No.
And I know, as Chris revealed during the interview, he hasn't seen any.
I did add it to my watch list.
I watched the ramen episode, and I'm almost done with the season 3 premiere that I started.
The Monk?
Yes, months ago. But I'm taking it very slow, like the Monk.
You're taking it despacito.
Chris, you saw movies.
I did. I can't remember if I've talked about it on the show before, but I got the Movie Pass card that's all over the yes, all over the social media is being advertised. You spend $10 a month on a subscription service, and you virtually get to see unlimited movies in theaters. I signed up for it because when I was working at the Alamo, we had a couple customers that were doing it, and I was like, oh, if I weren't getting free movies at the Alamo, that's something that I would be interested in. And now that I am a civilian in terms of movie theater employment, and they advertised that they dropped their prices.
Oh.
Quite cool, because when I was working at the Alamo, it was like $30 a month, I think. And now, they were still kind of like a small company. They were trying to figure things out, and now they've hit a stride where they're like, okay, we are a real company now. Let's do this. Let's offer.
I know some chains are trying to are lashing them out against
AMC for whatever reason is really upset about it. I'm not sure why, because they're still getting money from MoviePass, but whatever. I mean, I think it's maybe like a way to, in their eyes, it's a way to undermine their ticketing systems or something. I don't know, but yeah, some theaters don't like it. Other theaters seem to be relatively indifferent to it, and some theaters might end up liking it because it now, by offering this service. Not that I'm plugging them or anything, because I don't get anything back from them. It's just a service that I enjoy. As far as I'm concerned, this gives me more money to spend on concessions, which is where a movie theater actually gets its profits. Because anyone that knows anything about movie theaters, most of those ticket sale prices go back to the studios. They don't see much of it. Anyway, whatever. That's from years and years and years of working at movie theaters. I know these things. Ridiculous percentages of how much money studios get versus the theaters get to keep. Anyway, I saw some movies because I'm taking advantage of the Movie Pass, and I'm like, hey, yeah, let's see some movies. I saw The Foreigner, the new Jackie Chan joint, and that was quite good. It's got Jackie Chan in it, so there's action stuff in it, but it's a very dramatic, story-heavy movie about a man just trying to find out who killed his daughter in a terrorist bombing in England, and he tracks down these guys that are members of a new sub-cell of the IRA, and finds out that they're because of an IRA connection, they're loosely connected to Pierce Brosnan's character, who is playing some sort of governor type character. I don't know how the UK politics work, but he's some sort of magistrate, it would seem, for or a representative for Northern Ireland to Britain, and so Jackie Chan, as you see in the trailers, he's like, who killed my daughter? Who killed my daughter? Tell me who killed my daughter. And finally, he's like, okay, I'm getting nowhere in this. And as they slowly reveal through the movie, he has special ops training, and so he starts putting that to use to kind of terrorize Pierce Brosnan and his men back until like they finally are willing to give him this information. And it's very good, very well done. Pierce Brosnan gets to be super Irish in it, like possibly more Irish than he actually is, or at least is at this point. I mentioned this off mic, but like he's so Irish, it's so thick in this movie that I almost expected him to yell, "Maybe you shouldn't be living here," to a couple people, as a reference to his wonderful work in the movie Taffin,
which I own.
Yeah, and as do I. Yeah. Have either of us seen it?
No. Taffin.
Yeah. It's Taffin. Maybe you shouldn't be living here.
Remember those old trailers that were so great where like I don't know if they probably for Taffin because it's like even before that time, where the trailer would just be them showing scenes out of context and the narrator going Taffin and then show a scene and he'd be like Taffin.
Yeah.
They show the scene and then they do for like a 3.5 minute long trailer.
Yeah. My personal favorite's Savage. Savage.
Well, it would end with him being like, then maybe you shouldn't be living here. Taffin. November 1988.
I do remember that.
Taffin. I don't know when it came out.
Yeah. But no, like Savage.
Probably 89 because it was just a great movie.
the best.
No, I know it was before that.
Yeah. God, Taffin. No, I mean I always love that kind of style where you just kind of like announce Halloween 2.
And then the sequel will be like Jaws 2. And they show like
Revenge.
a scene just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. Jaws 2. Summer 19 fuck you. Yeah, I miss those trailers. You wouldn't know the story.
Yeah.
Because, like...
Remember the Shakma trailer?
No.
It's the one with the killer baboon. And at the very end, like, the narrator, like, loses his shit.
Oh, really?
He's like, Shakma. Shocking audiences everywhere. Shakma!
It's like the Tingler.
And it just sounds like he's being dragged off by Shakma.
Yeah. Just keep
I remember
keep rolling.
last House on the Left, they'd be like, keep telling yourself... It's only a movie. It's only a movie.
I should repeat to myself, it's just a show. I should really just relax for Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Mystery Science Theater 3000. And then like they
space,
throw,
no one can hear you scream.
Exactly. Alien. In space, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah, it's just the klaxon.
Mother! And it's just going back and forth here. Actually, for real though, Alien has maybe the best trailer of all time.
No, it's really good.
That pacing is a fucking amazing because then once the cat loses its mind and hisses, and then it's just the face like Alien 1979.
Yeah.
No one will hear you scream.
I mean, I think the cool thing about the if I can get to it. Okay. So I think you guys need to hear this shit at home.
Put it to the microphone.
Yeah. Give it a sec. Because this guy's about this. I mean, people are still getting announced. But I mean, I just fucking love trailers like that.
Yeah.
That are just Roddy McDowell's in this movie because of course he is.
Shocking audiences everywhere.
Oh,
it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's so good.
I mean, I'm trying to think of other. I mean, Savage again. Let me see if I can pull that shit. But in the meantime, have you gotten into anything, Jake?
Not really. Let's talk about trailers again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I mean, I did see another movie.
Okay, yes.
I did finally, now, like, 2 years later, see Dunkirk, and I enjoyed it. It was
anxiety filled.
Oh, high tension, higher tension than the movie High Tension.
Hot tension.
Yeah,
it's a French film.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Good. Yeah, but
Savage.
It reminds me. There's a movie called Blood-Sucking Freaks.
Blood-sucking freaks.
Well, so they changed the title after they had made the trailer. So instead of making a new trailer, they just overdubbed it with Blood-Sucking Freaks. I forget what the original title was. Yeah. But so the original trailer is kind of like that kind of trailer. But
where it's got the announcer voice.
Yeah.
And random dudes shouting and getting really angry.
Shut up! Shut your mouth.
But so in the final trailer for Blood-Sucking Freaks, after they renamed it, they just got a person to come in and overdub Blood-Sucking Freaks over the original title, but they didn't try to match it at all. So it'll like go from a deep baritone like this, and then it'll just be like Blood-Sucking Freaks.
Like a bad cable dub.
Yeah.
Ever see did you ever see Bebe's Kids in the 90s?
Bebe Kid?
Sure. Yes. But you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, but I've never seen it.
The trailer, I feel like at the very end, like the tagline was originally supposed to be animation with attitude, but they didn't want to scare away like audiences. So they just go, it's animation. Like they're just like
and they just clipped it.
But yeah, you can tell that there's supposed to be something a little. You got something?
No, continue if you got your thing, because I found a trailer that is the basis for what I've been talking about.
Oh.
But yeah, so here's the end of the Bebe's Kids trailer. If I can find it.
I don't know if the mic picked it up as well as you'd like it, but yeah.
Animation.
It's animation. No,
it's
but
animation.
The voice.
Yes, we know it's animation. We saw the trailer.
Yeah, the voice I was trying to remember is from this trailer. I won't play the whole thing, obviously, but one of the greatest trailers of all time.
Oh, I know what you're doing.
And the opening's so good.
Somewhere between science and superstition, there is another world. The world of darkness.
Exorcist, baby. But the thing that's so great about The Exorcist 2 is that movie was so fucked up.
The Exorcist 2.
Yeah. That
movie is fucked up.
The Exorcist, I think it's like something unthinkable.
I don't think I've seen any of the sequels, actually.
3 is actually pretty good.
Yeah, based off the book Legion that William Peter Blatty was basically the sequel to The Exorcist.
I Am Legion.
But I think but the voice, the idea of like something terrible is happening to this girl, this innocent girl in this house. But The Exorcist was so fucking wild. A trailer got banned. Because it is you could see it on YouTube very easily.
Yeah.
It's the flashing face trailer just over, and it just, like, if you watch it, it fucks with your senses, even watching it on your phone.
Yeah.
It just flashes of the demon face, of brah, 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 and it just keeps hitting you over and over again, and they had to pull it.
There are moments where I think about, because I have the theatrical version of The Exorcist, I miss the subliminal stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's still there in the theatrical version, but the version that all of us have seen.
Yeah. The version you've never seen.
Yeah.
Get terrified all over again.
That's my favorite part of the version that of the director's cut, quote unquote.
Is what? The faces?
They play it up a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've said it a bunch, but like, just little things like when they close the cabinet door, they open a refrigerator, the demon's face appears. Yeah, it's definitely more prevalent in the version you've never seen. But yeah, I don't know, because I know I've talked to some people who think that it's just unnecessary. Like we get it, but the thing that I like about it is some people have watched the version you've never seen and never noticed it, because again, there's no music cue. I think it's creepy and very effective. The thing that I don't like about that movie, about that version, not because I find it scary, is the pacing is ruined with the spider crawl down the stairs. It's just like a total shock thing and unnecessary, and it ruins what I've said a zillion times, a perfectly paced movie. Yeah. So,
Whereas I don't like the demon faces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, like I said, there you go.
Yeah, the specifically in the version you haven't seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Coming to theaters.
Shocking audiences everywhere.
But like the one
tingler is loose in the theater. Stream for your lives. The tingler is loose in the theater.
The one that
Stream for your lives. You knew that was coming too. We've done this podcast for too long for you not to know that stupid shit was coming back.
The one that always stood out to me as being unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what the mom's doing, but she's in the kitchen and like on the stove or on the fan for the stove, like it's just there, like superimposed, and I'm like, I was like, this is dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it in the theatrical version. It's there too.
Is it?
But not the faces on things,
More
but
subtle.
they will
Like
flash
the
face.
title card.
They'll flash the face in between scenes. Also,
I remember the when I saw that the first time, and I thought it was just something that was in the version that you've never seen, because that was the first time I'd ever actually watched the movie.
I think it's a lot of the people like our age. It's saw the movie.
Yeah, but like I remember it like just cutting to that face in a black void, and that also being like, the fuck is that?
Yeah, I mean that's just the demon reaching out.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing too is
maybe I'm just too desensitized, because at that time I had already seen all the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And I was kind of a big deal. I wasn't afraid of horror movies.
Yeah. Well, no, I think the best moment of the demon face showing up in either version
is Finn Balor going up against
Hollywood
AJ.
Hulk Hogan. Is and Vince McMahon blowing out both quads, running in. Yeah.
God damn.
I remember. I think you were telling me about it, and like I talked to. It's that's a famous wrestling moment, but like the terror in Batista and Cena's faces, knowing that they fucked up and their boss blew out his quads and is sitting there staring at him and can't move. But anyway, the best use of the demon face at all in either versions is at the end when it's just full on exorcism mode, and I can't remember if she has killed Father what's his name?
Karras?
No, Father Karras is the main guy.
Muldooney.
Father Max von Sydow. I can't remember his name. Father Marin. Thank you, Father Marin. And
Father Guido Sarducci.
And real quick, the thing that the director's cut has that's really good is not in the director's cut, which is almost worth just getting the version you've never seen, is there's more interaction with them outside of the doors getting ready for the exorcism, which I like, the mentor and the mentee. But is you see Reagan's face and she's staring at you, and superimposed on her face is the demon's face. And it's a very jarring thing, because at first it just looks like chaos, but then you realize it's the demon's face, and it's the moment where we really, you finally see the demon in her, like that's, what's happening. And I think it might be the moment where Father Karras sees it and he's like, okay. Because so much of that novel and the movie, but of course the novel you can take much more time with, so much of that novel he doesn't want to believe it. Because I think if he believes it in a sick way, his faith that he lost is being not rewarded, but quote unquote rewarded through the torture of this innocent girl. And that's fucked up for him, And he's getting over the fact that he blames himself for his mother's death, for not being there. Yeah. But and I think that is so fucking genius about The Exorcist. But because every other exorcism movie does that. But like that idea of, and I've always talked about like going back to when doing Hollywood horror marathons in college and stuff. Like I'd always talk about R.G. McCready's could arguably, in my opinion, be like the greatest horror hero of all time. If he's not the Thing in the end. And I think Father Karras is up there too with being even more so maybe the greatest hero in like horror movie history, because that's a guy who doesn't believe in anything and at the end willingly sacrifices his life against this force that he didn't believe in a week ago. and was something that he's a priest, and I don't know, like that inner conflict to him, and that's something where like I stress, if you enjoy the movie, read the book, because it focuses so much more on his moment of, now I'm going to spend, not really knowing, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life taking this thing down. Where at the beginning he goes, and I know Bruce Campbell talks about this too, because it's one of his favorite, they always ask him favorite horror movies, is they go through every possible medical explanation before they finally, very begrudgingly, entertain the idea of it being a demon. Because in real life, it's
the last thing you would think.
And even at that point, even Father Karras, when like she's speaking other languages to him, he's like, no, there's an explanation for it. And then he goes home, listens to the tape recording, and it's in the movie, but it's so well drawn out in the book, where he listens to the voice he just witnessed, this horrible, guttural demon voice that we all know, and then he plays a tape of her before she was possessed, and then that moment he hears the loss of innocence in the voice, and that's when he's like, okay, and that's when he gets Father Merrin, and it's just I the more and more I watch that movie, and especially when I did the Audible with William Peter Blatty reading the book, it strengthened that movie just so much more, that like, and I think a lot of people now are like, oh, I've seen The Exorcist, it's not scary, and it's not necessarily about being scary. Okay, fine. Yeah, it's touted. Anything being touted as the scariest, greatest, funniest, whatever is almost a disservice to the movie.
Yeah, because then your expectations automatically jump
exactly, and they're going to go, and they're going to do the thing. Oh, I sat through The Exorcist. It wasn't scary at all. Yeah. But it's
kind
again
of the same problem that I had the first time I saw it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where if you're scared by The Exorcist, fine, but it's so much more about, I think, the ultimate human condition. This little girl suffering at the end of this house, but like at the end of the street. But it's so much, I think,
sucking
about
dicks
the
in hell.
The idea of it is the ultimate good versus evil, whether you believe in it or not. And I think that's super powerful. And I think that's and that inner struggle is so interesting, far exceeding just being a scary horror movie.
By the way, slight sidestep.
Yeah.
Did you see this year's Treehouse of Horrors?
No, but I heard do they have one of the guys from The Exorcist TV show on it?
The first segment is a parody of The Exorcist.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
And I think Ben Daniels, who is astoundingly, amazingly good on The Exorcist TV show, which if you're not watching, even more Exorcist plug, watch it. It's so good.
Matt Hawkins recommended it last week.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
he
so
mentioned
freaking
that.
good.
We were like, oh, Jake, why weren't you here?
It's so freaking good. I'm sorry I missed that. But I think because he posted a photo of him in front of the TV in like tonight. I think he voices the Exorcist, or the if I haven't
the
seen it.
demon voice maybe.
I'll have to watch it because it was a picture of him.
It's on Hulu.
It was a priest. Yeah, I got
that's
Hulu,
how I saw it,
and that's how I'm keeping up with the Exorcist, keeping up with the exorcisms of the Exorcist.
I'm going to add that to my list right meow.
But it's so good. Season 1 is such a clever show, and I'm so glad it got picked up for season 2 because I think it's picking up steam now where it's like it's moving, like people, like more people are seeing it.
Is it grooving then?
The critics are really seeing it as well. It's not just it's just some cheap remake of it's not just cashing in on just The Exorcist. Maybe that was how it got pitched. I'm sure it was. Oh, look, we'll make a scary Fox show. But like there's a scene in season 2 where there's like cardinals and bishops, and it's all this inner thing going on with demons and possession, and it's all like demons are taking over the church, Catholic Church. And so they're having this big like dinner, and like I think it's one of the cardinals. Like he's possessed, and other people are possessed. And
is this like some Battlestar Galactica thing where you don't know who's a Cylon and who's a real human?
we know who's possessed.
Oh,
because they have like dueling double pupils in one eye that like will like anyway. But what you see in the beginning of the episode is someone has like the communion wafers, and they're mounding up, like crushing them up, and they're sprinkling them on these desserts, right?
Oh.
And the guy's like, these are the finest pecan pies and all of fucking whatever. And like, so he goes, he puts them down.
I do love
and
pecan pie.
They all take a bite, right? But they don't know that it's sprinkled with the body of Christ. And they just start projectile vomiting blood and all die a horrible death. And you see the person. I haven't got far enough past that episode yet. I'm still a couple episodes behind, where she's like is she like a holy hitman, like taking out these like people? Because it really expands by the end of the first season that it's not just a family being terrorized by a demon, and it's also not demon of the week. It's you sit with the family the whole season and go through every twist and turn, blah 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 blah.
Did they have her doing the crab walk and licking the ankles of her sitter?
No,
because I remember that was one thing that was in the book that they didn't do in the movie that you were like, man.
Well, yeah, but yeah, she's like, it was like a cat gnawing at her. It was like so creepily done, like it said in the book. But I don't remember. I mean, I remember they do the whole like contortion, like speed thing, walk and whatever. But and you earn the power of Christ compels you moment when you finally get it. It's almost like the power up moment towards the end of the first season that you're like, fuck yeah, because the guy you're following is this priest who is like just a normal good priest. Does his sermon on Sunday. 3 or 4 people show up. They're falling asleep, and he believes in God. Mm-hmm. But then he's, again, tasked with this unimaginable thing that he doesn't want to believe is true. And when he finally gets that moment of like courage to stand up to basically the ultimate evil, and he drops that line, it's like the coolest thing in the world.
Does it still take place in Georgetown?
I honestly don't remember. I don't think so.
I mean, it's definitely not filmed in Georgetown.
No, I don't think so. You think I should know? You think I know that, but I don't think I have multiple like. Well, there's a lot of twists and turns in it that I can't remember, but it's good.
Cool.
You get into anything fun,
No.
Sam?
No, but anyway.
Glad I watched 2 movies, guys.
Yeah, hey, I had Shockma.
Yeah.
Shockma!
Shocking audiences everywhere.
Shockma. Make me feel better.
Shockma.
Savage. Bullets are his game. Guns are his game. Bullets are his business.
Don't go into the basement. Don't go into the house. Don't.
What would Geek Out's trailer be?
Geek out.
Yeah. It is Wednesday. No, in a small, quiet town of Clifton, Virginia. It is Wednesday. My dudes. Geek out. Dun, 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 dun. Geek out. Our last episode has to be like that. It's like, hey Jude, like all of our guests come back. Hey, geek out! Dun, 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 dun.
Everyone we've interviewed.
There are some that
comes.
There are some that I think that would be down to do that too.
It's just a clip show that everyone gets pissed off that like we waited all this time to get to get closure and all we get is a fucking clip show.
Yeah, exactly. To times like these, Foo Fighters playing in the background.
Yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, so thanks again to Meredith Finch for coming on.
Yes.
Again, that first volume of Rose out in comic book stores everywhere Wednesday, November 8th. This has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Fried chicken.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.
Celery.